Hi, welcome. Thank you for coming out tonight.
Yes.
My name is Bob Kiefauer. I'm the chairperson of the Democratic Party of York County. And we're going to get things started now. I'd like to begin by thanking Mr. Bobby Simpson for allowing us use of the facility this evening. Also, special thanks to Steve Bush and White Rose Community Television for covering this event for us tonight. The process that the Democratic Party has in order to put a candidate on the ballot for a special election is not a particularly difficult process, but it is very specific. There's basically two steps to it. The first is the county committee, and since the 95th legislative district is entirely in York County, it makes it a little bit easier. We don't have, a lot of these districts are split across multiple counties. But the Democratic Party of York County, using the rules established by the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, has formed a nomination recommendation committee. And this is made up of the precinct committee people, the precinct committee people that live in the 95th legislative district, the officers of the Democratic Party of York County that live within the 95th legislative district, the at-large members, and the state committee members from York County who are elected at large to represent the entire county. We will be gathering in a couple of weeks to vote to recommend a candidate to the the committee will vote, and then I will forward a recommendation of the results of that vote to Chairman Jim Byrne, chairperson of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, and then he will call for a vote by the members of the executive committee of the Pennsylvania Democratic Party, and they will formally vote to put a candidate onto the ballot. The way it stands right now, there are more questions on the timing of all of this than we have answers, simply because nothing can really happen until the vacancy in this state house seat actually occurs. And that won't happen until next Tuesday, January 15th, when State Representative and Auditor General-elect Eugene DePasquale formally resigns his seat from the State House. He set it up so that it coincides with being sworn in as the next Auditor General of Pennsylvania. Within a couple of days, a day or two, hopefully, it shouldn't be any longer than that. After Auditor General-elect DePasquale's resignation, the Pennsylvania Department of State will issue the legal notice of the vacancy that exists in the State House. When that happens, once that legal notice comes out, that's like the first domino, if you will, and then a whole bunch of other dominoes fall very, very quickly after that. At that point, then, I'll be able to call for the meeting of the Nomination Recommendation Committee. We will gather at a public meeting. Will be held at Democratic headquarters at 275 West Market Street here in the city of York. And we will meet with the candidate or candidates and that evening and have a vote. And then the very next day, I'll forward the results of that vote to Chairman Byrne, as I said. The State Committee, Executive Committee, the way it stands right now, will probably be voting on Saturday, February 9th. That's when the committee next meets in Hershey on that particular day. Unless the Department of State requires that the candidates from both parties have their paperwork and filing fees and everything prior to that date. So we're still about a month out from actually officially having a candidate here. The other thing that we have no clue about the timing of at this stage of the game is what date this special election is going to be held on. And we won't know that until the Speaker of the House, Republican Sam Smith, sets that date, and once again, he can't do that until that legal notice comes out from the Department of State. We fully anticipate and expect that the Speaker will do the right thing by the taxpayers and hold the special election to coincide with the primary this year, which is in May 21st this year. There's been some discussion. My counterpart, the head of the local Republican Party, was quoted in one of the newspapers last week as saying that he expected it to be in late March or early April or something like that, because we can't allow this House seat to remain vacant for too long. My personal opinion on this is, if we have a special election plus or minus a couple of days from April 1st or whatever, we're looking at, shortening the time period of that vacancy by 5 or 6 weeks for how many tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money to have a special election by itself like that. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And the other thing, if you are a resident of the district, after Auditor General-elect DePasquale resigns next week, the Constituent Services Office that he's operated, his staff have operated for the last 6 years, will still remain open. So if you have business with the state and you need somebody, to help you navigate PennDOT or whatever it might be, there will still be people around, staff around, that will be able to handle those things for you. So it doesn't seem like it's much of a concern, at least for me, to shorten this the time period here by just a couple of weeks. That's basically the process in a nutshell. There's a whole lot of other moving parts to this and lots of other details and everything, but for now, that's the highlights of this. What we hope to do here this evening is, as you're probably aware, we have been collecting questions from members of the Nomination Recommendation Committee and members of the public as well over the last about 6 weeks, 7 weeks, something like that. We had set up a web page where you could fill out questions. Of course, you could email them, drop them off at headquarters, whatever. And we've gotten quite a number of different questions like that. So we're going to hit some of the highlights on those this evening. And then afterwards, we're just going to kind of break, and you'll be able to speak with the potential nominee, Mr. Schreiber, one-on-one, and just kind of chit-chat and stuff for a little bit after that. So at this moment, I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening's event, J.P. Kirsch, who many of you may know. It's a longtime resident of York County, former newspaper editor, who works in Harrisburg himself right now. He'll be moderating the event. And I'd also like to introduce our candidate's potential candidate nominee here, Kevin Schreiber. JP, Kevin?
Thank you. Well, thank you all. Good evening, and great to be sharing this evening with you. Thank you all for coming out on a chilly night, and I hope everyone's having a great 2013 thus far. Thank you to Chairman Bob Kefauver, Chairman of the Democratic Party of York County. Thank you to Brandon and Chad, who strive daily alongside Bob on this party's behalf. And thank you to the countless volunteers, many of you are here this evening, who give hours upon hours of themselves to ensure our party is well prepared and represented throughout York County. I'd like to thank the elected officials that are with us tonight. We have County Commissioner Doug Hope, we have Councilman Henry Nixon, we have former Council President Genevieve Ray, and our Mayor Kim Bracey. I'd like to thank them all for being here tonight. They have been all very supportive, and I appreciate all of their input and insight thus far. I'd also like to thank Representative and Auditor General-elect Eugene DePasquale, who obviously is setting forth large shoes to fill. Specifically, I've had the pleasure and honor to work for Mayor Bracey over these past 3 years, and previously alongside her in the John Brenner administration. As John has been, and Mayor Bracey is, a great mentor and supporter, and I'm honored to call her my friend. I would also like to commend the York County Democratic Party for this open process that it began several weeks ago. This process continues this evening as we prepare a possible candidate for the 95th District. And it is truly a pleasure to be here tonight. As my wife Jen and I consider a possible candidacy, I have received an overwhelming amount of support throughout this community. But I know this is just the beginning, with much work to come. And I know this evening and in the days to come, our community will want to get to know a little bit more about me if I am yet to become the official candidate for the 95th. My name is Kevin Schreiber. I'm a Pisces. I am presently the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of York. I have been employed by the city for just shy of 7 years now, and am fortunate to have worked under both the Brenner and Bracey administrations. I'm from neighboring Chester County, but I call myself a Yorker, and am honored to hopefully have been adopted by each and every one of you. I have spent over a third of my life in the city of York, so while I may be Chester County, over a third of my life, and I'm a proud graduate of York College, and I married a York native, so I'm told I'm not going anywhere. I married Jen in 2008, and my wife Jen and her business partner own a small business here in the city, a shameless plug for the Green Bean Roasting Company. And we're happy homeowners in historic Newton Square with our 5-year-old puppy, Lucy. I have recently earned a master's degree from the Penn State University. And besides my marriage to Jen, what I'm most proud of is working with the good folks like you to improve the quality of life for our community and give hope and help to our citizens and create the conditions where our people can reach their full potentials. I believe in our people. I believe in all of our people, regardless of background, race, religion, education, orientation, or disability. I believe in our York's rich diversity. I have lived local government for these past 7 years. I have lived and breathed this community and have dealt daily and seemingly round the clock sometimes to move it forward. We have worked hard to establish the partnerships between the public and private sectors. We have worked with business leaders and fledgling entrepreneurs. We've established novel programs to help new businesses open and keep small businesses chugging forward. We have worked block by block to improve our neighborhoods. We have attacked blighted properties and closed nuisance properties. We have established the conditions in which our new businesses and startup investors have felt confident in developing in our city. We have added tax base and we've helped create jobs. We've brought dozens of vacant properties and buildings to a higher and better use throughout the neighborhoods throughout all of our city. We have acquired key grants and resources to employ local workers to build upon our local economy and its assets. And I've been honored to work alongside and learn from elected officials, business leaders, business startups, nonprofit organizations, community activists, and concerned citizens like all of you. As a believer in and a practitioner of bipartisanship, I have been blessed to work with and learn from people of all political stripes. We still have looming challenges that our small core communities, our cities, our townships, and our boroughs all face throughout Pennsylvania. Educational fairness, property taxes, infrastructure, and other great challenges threaten the growth of our Commonwealth and our communities and the competitive advantage of Pennsylvania. And truth be told, as we know in this room, many of these challenges can only be adequately addressed in Harrisburg. We need a less polarized state government, one that cares more about people than politics, more about solid service than lip service, and more about productive results than partisanship, and more about revitalizing our core communities than simply the status quo. In a state House of Representatives of 203 members and a General Assembly of 253 members, we know the road to renewal and the road to reform and the road to rebuilding our communities is tortuous and long. But it's one that we have to be ready and willing to face, and we need good people to face it for our future and the next generation of Pennsylvanians. So because of people like you, and because of the great family and the friends and the network of individuals that I have been so fortunate to work with over these past 7 years, I have great hope and belief in our collective Commonwealth's future. And I sincerely thank everyone for coming out tonight, because I know there's probably 101 better things you'd all want to do on a Tuesday evening. But with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have throughout the course of this evening. Thank you.
All right, let me run by you briefly what we're going to do about questioning tonight. We got a lot of questions online, obviously, a lot of questions from the committee. We're not going to try to get into specific policy details because some of the problems that are going on in Harrisburg are going on for 20 years. We don't expect our freshman legislature to go up there and solve them. We're going to try to establish broad legislative agenda, broad legislative view, so that we can get a better idea of of who the candidate might be and what the objective would be when the candidate gets up there. So in that, the first question, and I'm going to combine a lot of the questions and try to cover as much of this as we can in about 40 minutes, so that we're not here all night. What can the state be doing better to help third-class cities like York?
Boy, that's a very loaded question. I think primarily listening. We have 53 third-class cities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. All 53 of them, I scarcely say, are facing very similar challenges. And we know those challenges. They've been studied, they've been reported upon, and they all may be different in magnitude or relativity, but they're all similar. I think our state government could take a more active role in listening to the residents, listening to the constituencies of these third-class cities, and more so, paying attention to the challenges that have been facing for several decades now. Over 50% of Pennsylvanians live in distressed communities, in fiscally distressed communities in Pennsylvania. It's over 50% of our population. If that's not alarming, I'm not sure what is. Over the past several years, we've had very challenging news coming out of our state capital, the city of Harrisburg, the city of Reading, the city of Scranton, Altoona, and York, Lancaster, and its sister cities are not too far behind. While we struggle daily to meet these challenges, and despite all of these cards that are stacked against our cities, we still have proceeded with Herculean tasks of improvement. Our cities are great bright spots throughout this Commonwealth, and we've accomplished very good things. And if you study the national trends, and many of us know, populations are migrating back to cities. Suburbanization of America has occurred, and we now have a younger millennial generation that wants to grow up in urban areas. So the issue that we as Pennsylvanians have to face is how can we wrestle with these challenges that our core communities throughout this Commonwealth face, all of which are rich in diversity, in history, in cultural arts, and are beaming with very good things and positivity. They all have strong neighborhoods and strong people. So our Commonwealth understands there are challenges. We face challenges with property tax, with education, with high concentrations of blight, of tax-exempt real estate, and poverty. We know these challenges, and all of you do. So now more than ever, our Commonwealth needs to address them and listen to the people that are elected to represent those and work together to arrive at some common solutions.
Believe it or not, this is not the first one-candidate debate I've moderated. But you would have to go back to Bill Goodling's reluctance to debate back in the 90s to find the last one. This is a question that we got in various forms, a lot of the places that we got questions, so I'm going to try to put it together in one. As you look back on your years in York and service in the York community, what are you most proud of? And what were you not able to accomplish that you would like to see your successor succeed with? And do you have any advice for that successor?
I'm probably most proud, honestly, of being able to wake up every morning and go to work and recognize that I can accomplish good in the community that I live in. And I know that may sound a bit altruistic and maybe a bit naive, but we in public service generally aren't in this for fame, for glory, or for money. We all have to have thick skin, but to understand that I can daily wake up and go to work and work with great people, with great leaders, and work with great folks like you to accomplish good in the community that you live in. Not many folks can go to work and say that they can get a return on their investment like that. So as cliche as it may sound, that's what keeps me motivated and keeps me going. Because like I said, you aren't in this, you're in this for the long haul. This is a marathon and not a sprint. And as I said, we've been able to accomplish great things, but we know that we have looming challenges that we have yet to face. So I think I'm proud to say that over these past 7 years, I have been able to accomplish some good things, and we have improved our community. We have improved the quality of life, and one need only walk our city streets or go to some of our community organizations, walk around the farmers market, or be out meandering in Cherry Lane, and you run into people that either directly or indirectly, our role in city government, we have impacted their life. And hopefully, which is what we strive for, we've made it better and we've improved it. The latter part of the question was what were we not able to accomplish?
What were you not able to accomplish, and what advice do you have for your successor?
Well, advice for my successor, I'd say, is have a good family and some thick skin. But it's, as I mentioned, it's probably honestly to take the long-term approach. This is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You have to recognize that there is a vision for this community, and it is to be better than it is today. And yesterday we achieved that goal, and tomorrow we'll achieve it again, as long as we're all working towards the same common goal and rowing in the same direction. So for any successor of mine, or as I've discussed with members of our staff in the Community and Economic Development Department, we all are working towards one common goal, and that's an improved and better quality of life for our citizenry and our community. We all take different approaches to it, be it in the department or in the private sector or in the nonprofit sector. So for my successor, I would encourage them to take the long-term approach, to understand that there is an end goal, and to work towards navigating all of the various steps that occur to get to that goal. And that's a skill that any individual in city government needs, and as well as building partnerships, and obviously, as I mentioned, crossing party lines and not focusing on partisanship, but working towards bipartisanship. Because York is an interesting community in that it is so supportive of itself, and that's something that you learn very quickly in this role or in city government. There are innumerable people and organizations that are willing to step up to be part of the solution, and I think we just need to work, and it falls to our role as elected or appointed leaders to help those individuals, bring them together, bring them to the table, and work towards those solutions. So I think for any type of successor, they need to understand that it is a marathon and not a sprint, and there are good people that are always standing by, ready and willing to roll up their sleeves and get to work to improve our community, and it's a matter of being able to listen and bring them to the table.
Now, this might kind of put you on the spot a little bit, but it's a question that's hard to avoid in an objective that is this seat. Gun control, since what happened in Connecticut and obviously Arizona and Colorado before that, should gun control be part of the immediate agenda in Harrisburg, and how do you feel about that issue in general? So let's put this in perspective first and foremost. I mean, obviously the conversation has shifted to gun control, but we mustn't forget the tragic events that did occur in the victims and the victims' families. If we're talking about the ban of assault weapons or high magazine clips, that really becomes much more of a federal issue. As we know, illegal guns can cross municipal lines, can cross state lines. So for one municipality or one district or one state for that matter to really take a stand, this really has to be from the federal level down. What our localities can do, what our districts and our municipalities can do, and our county governments is examine the horrific events of Connecticut and understand that what we can do locally is also focus on ensuring that the capacity and the abilities to help to provide the support for mental health in our communities is something that is prevalent to ensure that such tragic and horrific events don't ever occur again. So I think that would sum it up. And another question that we got many times in several different variations. Obviously, you'd be a Democratic candidate. Democrats have a slight advantage in this seat, but you're surrounded by a sea of Republicans, and I think anybody around here knows nothing gets done without some sort of cooperation. How do you plan to address that, the support of your party, but you have to get stuff done?
I have lived getting stuff done for these past 7 years. That has been a charge of both mayors, and it's been a charge of the community, is results driven. We don't have time to focus on partisanship in economic and community development. What we focus on is bringing the investors, bringing the business leaders, bringing community organizations and activists and residents together to achieve a common goal, and whatever the common goal may be. And we've accomplished success in this community, regardless of party lines and regardless of Republican, Democrat, or Independent. And it's the charge of our economic development and community development to work to build that investor confidence and to build the confidence in our community and its neighborhood. So economic development is often as hard to define as the word art. It can be a little bit of everything to everyone. So again, part of my job is always to be at the table, to understand the audience, and to try to understand what we need to do and what steps we need to take to arrive at a common goal that's mutually satisfactory and hopefully at the end of the day in our world is improving our community and our quality of life.
A couple of quick questions just to see if you read the newspaper. Your opinion on Governor Corbett's lawsuit against the NCAA?
I hadn't seen that in the paper. I'm glad you brought that up. I will preface and disclaim that I am not an attorney, so I have not read the full length of the suit against the NCAA. I could have sued Notre Dame last night for their performance, but I chose not to do that. For all those Bama fans, they played a heck of a game. But the governor has obviously taken steps in this course of action and at the hope of his advisors. Again, I am not an attorney. I have not read the suit. But it's my understanding that this will play out and we'll see how it goes. I would say I am not positive if that is the best use of our state taxpayer dollars. Again, if there is a legal challenge to be made, I'm not sure if the NCAA's actions were equivalent to admonish the actions of Mr. Sandusky. But again, I think we need to focus on the victims. We need to focus on moving forward. And we need to recognize that the actions that the NCAA has taken we're also punishing our current students, our future students, and our previous students. So if we want to remain competitive as a state for educational purposes, Pennsylvania State University is one of our premier educational institutions. We mustn't forget, again, that there are victims involved. I can understand the governor's interest in keeping the $60 million in fines in state, but perhaps there is another way to do that. Perhaps there is a way to work with the NCAA to keep that money in state, and perhaps there is a way to take that money and utilize it to ensure that such heinous crimes can't be conducted again in the future.
And last night, like I said, we were just going to cover broad topics, a couple of current events. You folks will have the chance to meet with Kevin after this if you want. To finish up on current events, the governor's proposed privatizing the lottery system. It's raised a lot of questions. What's your opinion of that deal?
Well, again, I'd like to win the lottery, as we all would, but privatize it, it might be a rush. Again, I think we have to remember and put things in a higher perspective at this level, that what is the lottery? Why do we have a lottery in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? It is to benefit older Pennsylvanians. We are the second oldest state in our nation, next to Florida, which many of our Pennsylvanians probably are retiring to. So as we have an aging population and a larger segment of our population that is aging, I think we need to make certain that the revenues that are in place by the Commonwealth now and the revenues that we are earmarking for the future are maintained. So I would not want to make a hasty proposition to privatize our lottery at the cost of our future revenue for our seniors.
Well, thank you very much.
We have some questions from the audience.
Well, I think what we're going to do is take it in a little less formal kind of scenario here. I'm just going to kind of have a little mix and mingle sort of thing here in a couple of minutes. There was one question that actually isn't even entirely for Kevin, but one question that I have received numerous times in the last week or 10 days is I was quoted in the paper as saying that there were numerous candidates that had, potential candidates that had spoken to myself, Auditor General-elect DePasquale, some other community leaders about possibly running for this seat. And I was quoted in the paper as saying that the field basically kind of cleared itself. And I'd like to actually let one of those people maybe tell you a little bit about, from his personal view, what kind of happened with that situation. JP, you want to explain yourself here a little bit?
He was going to be put on the spot.
Really, there have been a lot of questions. I've gotten a lot of questions about this process. I was one of the candidates, among others, and I know who the others were, who put in their name for the seat. And I believe that we were all very qualified and knowledgeable, and I have a background in public policy and a lot of memorized answers to questions about gun control. But the truth is that all of us realize, and we discussed it among ourselves, that Kevin is the candidate with the most bipartisan experience. And if Democrats are going to hold on to the seat, and if this person is going to be effective, they're going to have to work across the aisle. And the truth is that we, the rest of us, were all Democrats. The kind of Democrats who would not have been so nice to Governor Corbett about the NCAA suit, the kind of people who would have been throwing flames from this podium and then gotten to Harrisburg and had a difficult time delivering for the city of York, which is an important part of this job. And that's what happened. And I mean, I think the Democrats had, obviously for this seat, a lot of interest from a lot of very qualified people. I was one of them. I'm very qualified. but you have to you have to. I mean, this person is going to have to be able to not just work with people. He's going to have to be able to raise money. Republicans have been buying elections for the last couple of cycles. There's a danger that a deep pockets, no qualifications Republican could come in here, and that Kevin has that ability. And I don't think the rest of us did, and we, in the end, sort of talked ourselves out of it because of those intangibles that we just didn't have. So I hope that answers that question and puts to rest any idea that there was anything done here. That it was that was the way it was, and there's no sense going out there and doing this thing if you don't think that you can be the most effective person, and that's it.
Thank you, JP. Thank you, everyone, once again for coming out this evening. I think what we'll do now is just let you give you an opportunity just to mingle with Kevin and talk to him a little bit one-on-one about whatever's on your mind. And Meta.
I think you should take questions from the floor. I think.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to do that. Okay, we had decided not to go ahead and do that, to give people more of a chance to do this one-on-one. We felt was a better approach to this, since we basically only have one candidate. So once again, thank you very much for coming out this evening, and we'll be sure to publish that date of the next meeting when the actual vote occurs in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.